My guest today is Jim Barker, and Jim is not only the tennis coach here at Emory Henry for both the men's and women's teams, but also he's an accomplished videographer that has contributed on many documentaries. Jim, honored to have you on the show today.
Thank you very much, Chris.
I think that's your second appearance this year.
Yes.
First person we've had back twice. So.
And my good fortune.
Yeah. Well, Jim, the men's tennis team is 2-2.
Yes.
And the women's tennis team is 2-1 as well at this point. Have you been impressed with the teams so far and what they've done? And if you are, what makes you impressed about what they've done?
Well, I'm very impressed with the teams. We have the losses were very close losses, and the wins were very impressive wins. And I think this past weekend we had a couple of matches that were snowed out that we were also ahead of in those matches. So I felt that we could have came out of this weekend winning all 4 of those matches. And I think that's a good feeling because the women, especially against Virginia Wesleyan, has always been the underdog, and we haven't defeated them in a long time. The men have been fairly even with Virginia Wesleyan, but they have taken us, I guess, the last couple of years as well. So I felt really good that we had the edge on Virginia Wesleyan. And then the women played a really good match against Randolph-Macon, and of course then the guys' match is still up in the air.
And you mentioned the women's team was doing well. They have a lot of young players on their roster that are on your roster that are vying for seeds. You know, early on, I think I saw that the 2 and the 3 seed were freshman twins from John Battle, and they're vying for time at those seeds. Does it speak to the talent of the young players on the team, or the lack of upperclassmen when you see that sometimes?
Well, I think we have a lot of talent with the younger girls. And I think I'm very happy to see that. Now, these are women that I actually recruited, so I feel like I'm starting to develop my own team. When I first started coaching the women a few years ago, I inherited a team from Coach Hatch, and I recruited some of those players kind of from the fringe, but I wasn't directly involved with recruiting. So these are all young women that I have recruited, and we have established a very good relationship before they've gotten here, and I've had them on weight programs and hitting programs before they came to campus. So I felt really good about their dedication and their ability. So I'm not surprised at all that we have, I guess, right now 3 freshmen in our top 6.
Talk a little bit about how the season is broken up. If you can explain to us, it's a little bit of an odd season if you just look at it and you're saying, wait, they play in October and then wait, they don't play again until 4 months later in February. How is that season devised, and why is it the way it is?
Well, a lot of sports will have 2 seasons. It's just that one season is a non-competitive season. In tennis, because we have such great weather in the fall, they allow us to spread our 20 weeks. Each sport has 20 weeks of competition, or 19 weeks of competition, of which in tennis, you can have 20 matches. So you can divide those 19 weeks any way that you see fit. So most teams will spend 5 or 6 weeks in the fall and then have the 14 or 15 weeks in the spring. Now for me, what I'm starting to look at is it's obvious that weather for us is better in October than it is in February. So I think in the future I'm going to spend more time playing matches in the fall than in the spring, and kind of clear all the outside of conference matches off in the fall, and then just primarily have conference matches in the spring.
Right.
And it divides it up a little bit. We do play tournaments in the fall, and we only play one tournament, which was the ODAC tournament in the spring. So it just gives us a chance to play matches and form a lineup and find out what kind of talent we have. And it's a very good experience for us to be able to have those 2 seasons.
I'm sure if you put all the out-of-conference stuff in the fall, it readies you for that conference competition, when it comes time for spring.
And then we don't have to be in such a rush. We can play all the matches on the weekend. I'm not taking students out of class, which is a very important issue. I mean, if you look at our schedule, most everything is on the weekend. There's very few days that I'm actually taking anybody out of class, and if I do, it's probably after 2 o'clock. So I think it's very important for a coach to be considerate of a student's academic responsibilities. And it's good for me as a coach to be able to have those kind of relationships with professors, because they know that I'm not taking the students out of their classes. So if something were to come up and I had to make up a match, they're a lot more lenient with me than they would be some coaches that are taking students out of their classrooms 4 or 5 times a semester.
You mentioned your involvement with recruiting. When you look at an athlete, when you look at a student athlete coming in, you know, a prospective student athlete, what is the one, you know, attribute you value in that student athlete over anything else that they could do?
Well, the first thing I look at are GPAs and SATs, and because I have to know that they're going to be a good fit academically. And so that's the first thing that I look at. And then from there, then I look at their high school experience, their high school record. But the most important competitive quality that I'm looking for is whether or not they're playing junior tournaments, if they're involved in a junior program, if they're taking lessons from a pro at a country club, and they're involved in USTA tournaments. And at that point, if I know that a player is dedicated enough to dedicate their summer to those type of activities, then I know that that student is going to be a very good tennis player.
You have a couple double athletes on your team,
Yes.
and I think that's an interesting concept. How do they fit in, and does their athleticism translate that naturally to the tennis court?
It translates 100%. Now, there's always going to be a little element of fine-tuning, finding your timing with the tennis racket and the ball, but the athletic ability is still there. The cross-training that they're doing in other sports is still there. So I think it's a benefit. Obviously, you know, me having 2 seasons, they're going to be missing the fall season, which is a very important part of our program. So they're going to be missing that season, and they have a little bit of catching up to do. And that's one of the things that I ask these athletes to do, is I teach a tennis class in the fall. So I try to get them all to enter in my tennis class, and that way I can work with them a little bit during the class, and I know that I can keep them sharp in the fall, and that way the learning curve is not so steep when I bring them in the spring.
What do you think your teams right now need to do to get better to where you want them to be?
I think that there are some issues that we're looking at as far as technique, stroke production. Obviously, there's always room to improve as far as strategy goes and mental toughness. So I think at this point we're looking at mental toughness, and a key element of mental toughness is going to be physical toughness. So we're trying to get them a little bit stronger, a little fitter, and then working on them as far as their mental game goes. And then fine-tuning, since I'm a teaching professional, I can see things, elements that need to be fine-tuned. So then we'll talk about those things that are glaring that may be of benefit to them. So I think it's just being able to recognize what their weaknesses are and be able to help them with that.
Well, before I let you off the hook, Jim, anything else that you'd like to say that I've forgotten to ask you?
Well, I would like for people to come out and watch some of the tennis matches. And, you know, that's one of the few things that I've noticed. We do get a pretty good following because we have multi-sport athletes. So we get guys from the soccer team that come over and watch Brian play, and hopefully we'll have girls coming in to watch us play from some of the other teams. So I'd just like to have a little bit better student participation in our matches. But other than that, I think things are going well. We can give them a good day and show them some very good competition. So I hope that people come out and watch us play and get behind our tennis teams here at Emory Henry College.